They took a life. Are y'all comprehending that? They took a life without thought. They deserved the full extent of the law.
Marion County Sheriff Billy Woods talking about 2 juveniles who have been arrested and a third now being sought in connection with the recent shooting deaths of 3 area teenagers in a Central Florida community. The sheriff kind enough to join us now. Sheriff, it's very good to have you, sir. How is that investigation going now?
Good morning, Neil. Thanks for having me. Well, we're getting closer and closer to the conclusion. As soon as we have this third suspect in our custody, we'll be able to conduct our interviews and finalize and put what evidence we have together with the cooperation, obviously, with our state attorney's office and the state attorney, Bill Gladson. So we don't have him in custody yet, but hopefully we will here soon.
Was there a link between these 2 juveniles and a third, I guess, being sought, Sheriff, to those who were murdered? Did they know them?
Well, correct. Yeah, that's the link. They knew each other. Now, they're associated with the gangs, and not necessarily the time they were doing gang activity, nor am I going to say that the actions were specifically gang rivalry. But the way I put it in my press conference, there is no honor among thieves. And, you know, this whole scenario is tragic. There's nothing good in this entire scenario. You got 6 teens, which is ravishing not just my community, it's ravishing every community across this nation, where our youth are engaged in more criminal activity, and then they go out there. Now, I know what some of your viewers are going to say, well, they don't have a criminal history. Just because we haven't caught them does not mean they haven't committed crimes, been part of crimes, or helped in crimes. And the fact that the victims are 3 juveniles and our suspects and murderers are 3 juveniles, there's nothing good in this scenario.
You know what impressed me the most by following you and your remarks, Sheriff, over the last week? How blunt you are, but you don't leave any room for doubt. And stepping back and looking at it starkly and simply, when you referred to these individuals and no honor among thieves, you went on to say, at some point, these 3 individuals turned on our 3 victims and murdered them. And I thought the simplicity of that and the powerful impact of that hit a lot of people. He's right. We're talking about, oh, they're underage, and we gotta be careful, and don't do this, and don't do that. But you looked at it, the reality of the moment, and if indeed they were behind this, they murdered 3 young people.
Well, Neil, I'm just a simple man. I look at things as simplistic as possible. I don't believe in being politically correct. I don't believe in holding back. I know my community expects the truth, and that's what I give them. I tell them exactly how it is. If people don't like me, I can live with it. I definitely can. And, you know, people think that we, like myself, are hard. We have hearts. I have kids, and I understand in these scenarios. But the fact is we dance around the real issues. We want to focus on one thing that has no capability. I'm here to tell you, the gun didn't knock on their door, walk in their room and say, hey, look, let's go kill somebody today. They made a conscious decision. And the failure here is the fact that we do not get to the root cause. Family, our schools, and even ourselves out here in society. We, in fact, are enabling everything in which they do, just because we don't hold them accountable, just because we don't, we minimize their actions. We don't do them justice, we're doing them harm. And we're just degrading every single day in our society, in these great United States in which you and I live in, Neil. It's degrading. We need to go back to what our faith and our beliefs, back to our fathers that, you know, disciplined us. This is missing, Neil. It truly is. The foundation is there, but the walls have crumbled, and we need to build them back up.
You know, what's disturbing even all the more about this, Sheriff, and you pointed out, if this is indeed the work of gangs or gang work, or gangs are festering in Florida, of course, they're very prevalent in the Northeast and in California. You don't hear too much about it in Florida, but it's a problem, and you're worried about it, aren't you?
Absolutely, I am. You know, everybody wants to ignore it or deny it. Every community's got them. No matter how big or how small, there's some form of a gang in their communities. And I'm here to tell you, 15 years ago, I would have denied it too. You would have heard me saying, nope, there's no gangs here. But there is. Now, I'm not saying they're to the level of the cartel. You know, they're just what I phrase, and everybody's hit on this, what I call wannabe gangs. They have no structure, but it's still a gang. It's a group of them that come together, try to sue, pounding on each's chest and say, I'm better than you, you offended me, going back and forth. It's there. Don't deny it. Face it. Embrace the suck and deal with it.
Sir, do you think that these juveniles, whatever we want to call them, should then be prosecuted as adults?
Yes, I do, to the full extent.
And if not, if we don't prosecute them as adults, what's your fear?
The fear is what I just said earlier. We're sending a clear message to individuals like this that there is no accountability. And unfortunately, and it breaks my heart, it's a 12-year-old involved as well. His life is over. One decision, his life is done, as he knows it.
Sheriff, very powerful. You really did, stop a nation in its tracks, and it needed to be stopped in its tracks to look at at violence at its core, and in this case, at its senseless core.
Yeah.
So as a dad myself, I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Neil. If I'm the only one that's going to stand on the line, I'll stand on that line by myself, because I'm tired of hearing the rhetoric around this nation. I'm tired of hearing this and that, and nobody wants to stand up. We sit back in the shadows and just accept it or tolerate it. I'll be there, and I encourage people to join me. I'll stand on that line if I have to by myself.
Well, keep us posted, Sheriff. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for speaking the way you do. We could use a lot more of that in this world. Be well, Sheriff.
Thank you, Neil.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.